Who's excited to be in church this morning? Anybody? Woo! Hey, before we jump into the last week of From This Day Forward, I want to celebrate with you and tell you, man, we talk about all the time that, man, we want to be a church that loves Delaware until their heart beats like the Father's. Does that just get anybody else excited other than me? I mean, that just fires me up. Man, this past week, we were able to partner with an organization on Tuesday, and we were able to feed 60 families Thanksgiving meals. 60 families. By the sound of the applause, I think you thought I said 16, 1-6. I said 60, 60 families. Come on. It's good stuff. I want us to realize, I want us to never miss the miracle that's right in front of our face. I feel like it's my job as the pastor to always remind everybody and say, look, hey, sometimes when we're closer to it, we miss it, right? And I want to remind you, man, what God is doing in our midst is nothing short of miraculous. I always forever want to be a church that loves Delaware, that's for Dover, and for any city that we're in the future. Come on, somebody. When we put campuses all over this state and start to see there, 8 people are excited right now. We got to work on that, all right? But as we jump in today, I want to tell you guys, some of you guys know, and you've been along with us along the journey, but I was able to play baseball at a small university in South Carolina called Southern Western University, and it was one of the greatest exciting joys of my life to be able to spend 4 years with these guys that became more like family than it was friends. And every single year we would come back to campus. The season was in the spring, and so we would come back in January, like before when everybody else and all the other college students are sleeping in with slobber on their pillow. Like we were up early, like working out. You know what I mean? We were up getting after it, but we would always go on a retreat. How many of you guys have ever been on a retreat with your work or anything like that? Usually like the worst thing ever. Would you agree? The team building exercises galore, and you're just like, Lord Jesus, when is this going to be over? You're just praying for the end to come. But man, this was different. We actually enjoyed being around these guys, and we would do different activities, and it was always, we were cutting up because there was some funny guys on our team. But we would do some different activities, team building. And one of those was called a mousetrap maze. Okay, mousetrap maze was about 20 feet long. It was, I don't know, probably 5-6 feet wide. And somebody would get down on their hands and knees, and they would have a blindfold on them, and there would be mouse traps all over this little 20-foot by 6-foot path. And so they would go one hand at a time with the blindfold on, and they would like, no, don't move your hand there. Like, so they would walk them through this person, you would have like 15 guys. We split up into 3 teams. You have like 15 guys trying to coach everybody. And you finally had to understand that like everybody but one person had to shut up if you were going to get this right. You know what I mean? Too many people in the kitchen, too many cooks in the kitchen. And so had to get them all out of the kitchen and say one person. So we would walk through this, and eventually, nonetheless, it would snap right on somebody's hand. Luckily, they had gloves on, so that was good, big work gloves on, but it would scare the crap out of you nonetheless. But we would do this this team building. The next one we did was like a hula hoop. It was up in the tree. It was about 6 foot high, and we had about 15 guys that had to get through the hula hoop, and that was easy at first because you get the big, strong, burly guy. He's like chucking the second baseman through the hula hoop. You know what I mean? Shortstop, there you go. You're a center fielder, there he goes, right through the hula hoop. But the challenging part came at the end when you had to get his big tail through the hula hoop. You know what I'm saying? Like the 6'3", 245-pound third baseman, I don't know, it didn't work out too, like everybody's like blowing their back out. It was kind of, anyway, it was bad. But we had to get him through the hula hoop, and if you touch the hula hoop, you had to start all the way over. But the one that got me, and it still gets me to this day, is so simple, but yet scary as all get out, is the trust fall. You ever seen this happen? Like, this is team building. No, that's not team building. That's like scare the living daylights out of me. That's what it is. But you get up on let's just say a platform like this, and you get some of you have done this in your work setting, and you do it with like complete strangers. I would not advise that, because then you got some funny guy, you have like a broken tailbone or broken wrist or something like that. You would do this with somebody that you actually love, and you would sit there and you would get blindfolded, and you would fall backwards while these people caught you, that you're just trusting that they're going to catch you and not get some wise idea to let you fall all the way to the ground, and all the while you're doing it blindfolded. Anybody ever done a trust fall? Like, it's usually like 4 foot, 5 foot, but it feels like you're falling like 100 feet. You know what I mean? Nobody? Okay, cool. You know what I mean? Okay, thank you so much. That was good. But we would do this trust fall, and this is kind of the premise of the trust fall, is that when I put all my weight on you, I want to know that you're going to catch me. That when I put all of my weight on you, I want to know and I want to be confident that you're going to catch me. And as I started thinking about this last week of this series from this day forward, I started thinking about this is exactly the entire point of marriage. That when I put all of my weight on you, I want to trust that you're going to catch me. That when I pour out all of my emotions, I want to trust that you're going to catch me. I want to trust that you're not going to call me crazy, that you're not going to say this, that, or the other thing, but I want to trust that when I put all my emotions out there, that you're going to be standing there waiting to catch me. Spiritually, when you have a question or you have a doubt and you go to your husband or wife and say, look, I'm really struggling through this, and they're able to look at you and say, that's okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk it through rather than saying, look, you're an idiot. How could you ever question those things? We want to know that we can put all of our weight on our husband or wife and trust that they are going to catch us. Is this resounding with anybody today? This is the premise of marriage. That when everything is going wrong, that even when you think I'm crazy, don't call me crazy. Even when you think how I'm reacting is dumb, don't call me dumb. Just be there to catch me. And when I started to think about this is the fifth pillar that we'll talk about this morning, the pillars of marriage, and it's the pillar of trust. We've been talking about these 5 pillars of marriage. The first one and the central one is Jesus. We talked about love, we talked about respect, and how love is a woman's greatest desire, and respect is a man's greatest need. And we talked about communication last week. On a 1 to 10, how have you guys been doing on that this week? Sweet, okay, cool. Let's keep working on that. But we've talked about these pillars, but today we're going to talk about this 5th pillar of trust. And the definition of trust is this, is the reliance on the integrity, the strength, the ability, and the purity of a person or thing. The reliance on the integrity, the strength, the ability, a purity of a person or a thing. That I want to know that when I put all of my weight on you, that I can trust in your integrity, that I can trust in your strength, that I can trust in your ability, that I can trust in your purity. I can know that when I put all of my weight on you, that you're going to catch me. And this is the premise of trust. And we could probably all agree that trust sometimes takes a long time to build. Would you agree with me today? That trust is one of those things that sometimes can be really hard to build, but in a moment, it can all be taken away. Trust can take a long time, and let me just kind of like take a little time out, a little detour here. Is there's some of you in the room that like trust, you will never be able to trust anyone, and I want to challenge you to work on that. And there's some of you that you go on your first date, and you're like, I trust you with everything, and I wonder why my heart keeps getting broken. Like we need to find that the medium in between of never trusting and trusting on the first date. Find some happy medium there. And it can take so long to build, but yet it can be dissolved in one moment. And so if you have your Bible, turn with me to 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is known as the love chapter. If you've ever been to a wedding of any sort, you've probably heard this passage read. And if you're ever do a wedding, just read this and do some vows and you'll be good. You know what I mean? Like that's the completion of the wedding there. But 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, it starts off like this. Paul is writing, he says, love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Remember that. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And some other translations that you may have read before, some other versions, it was in saying love never fails. I want to kind of walk through this and talk through the beginning of this, and we'll kind of back up here. But I don't know about you, but there's not many relationships that would be described by all of these words. Let's walk through some of them. Love is patient. I'm out, right? Already, like I'm done. Anybody else with me? Patient, you struggle with patience. You couldn't get your hand up fast enough because you're impatient. You know what I mean? Like, love is patient, that's me. Love is patient and kind. That's a good start. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. Some of you are out on that one. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. We're going to go back to that last slide there, and I want to look at this, but rejoices with the truth. I believe that in this passage that the truth and trust are so interchangeable that the passage could as well have been read this, that love rejoices with trust. That when I put all of my weight on you, I want to know, I want to be confident that you're going to catch me. I don't want you to be the funny guy when you do the trust fall that moves out of the way and I break my butt bone. I don't want to be that person. I want to trust that when I put all of my weight on you, that you're going to catch me. Married folks in the room, would you agree with me? That's a big deal. This is a big deal that when I put everything out there, when I lay it all out there, I want to know that you're going to catch me. And this is only possible through trust. And so today, here's what I want to do. I want to give you 5 things. 5 things that are going to help you keep, restore, or earn trust. These 5 things, I'm going to promise you this. Today will be extremely, extremely like crickets in here, if you know what I'm saying. Is that okay? Can we do one last week of hard stuff? Can we do that? One last week of hard stuff. Can we do that? Awesome. All right. So the first thing, you're cheering now, but you may not be cheering in a minute. You'll be like, tomatoes throwing at me. You're like, get off the stage. So the 5 things, keep, earn, or restore trust. The first thing is this, is keep your heart. Keep your heart. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, Solomon is writing, one of the wisest men. We've talked about him before. He says this, he says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. I love this verse. This is like a commandment. Solomon is laying down the gauntlet. He says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. To understand this completely, I want to make sure we understand this word vigilance because it's not something we use all the time. Vigilance is defined this way, is alertly watchful, especially to avoid danger. He's saying, keep your heart, be vigilant about your heart. Make sure that you monitor this. Be watchful, especially to avoid danger. Church, I want to tell you something is that we can never underestimate the power of something once it's made its way into our heart. We can never underestimate the power that something has over us once we allow it to just bypass where we have been thinking and going to our heart. It begins to dictate the decisions that we make. How many of you know that our heart has power over our actions? You see, what you allow to get deep-seated into your heart, you will eventually do. The things that you said, oh, I will never do this. I could never go down that path. Well, the things that we say that we would never do, we do because our heart is not in check. People think that affairs start with wrong actions, and they are wrong actions, don't get me wrong, but that's not where they start. They start with wrong thinking. The affairs don't just start. You don't just go out and on a whim just have an affair. This is something that has been thought through. This is something that you've allowed to get into your heart. You haven't been vigilant with your heart. Keep your heart. I was thinking about this. I've heard people say this, that your eyes are the window to our soul, and I believe that, but I also believe that they're the window to our heart. Matthew chapter 6, verse 22 says, the eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Let me just take this for a second, and I want to relate this is what we allow to our eyes to be seen, what our eyes to see, This is what we allow in front of our face. This is what we allow the movies that we watch. And I don't want to get legalistic. I'm not going to tell you what movies you watch. I'm just telling you that hopefully there is a line of what movies, of what you will watch, of what you will put. Because here's what I want you to know, that what becomes deep-seated in your heart, what you allow to go through the filters of your eyes, you will eventually do if your heart is not in check. This is Jesus talking. He says, the eye is the lamp of the body, so if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. It is so easy to put our eyes on things that we shouldn't be on. It is right a matter of like 18 inches of in our pocket. We can just pull this out. We can see anything that we want to see, things that we don't even want to see. It's that easy. And the only way we can guard against this is if we keep our heart. We keep our heart. The things that we said we will never do, we will eventually do if we allow them to become deep-seated in our heart. The second thing is this, is keep your commitment. Church, the vows that we say in our marriage ceremony are a commitment that we're making with God and with each other. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24 says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. You're like, oh, that's Old Testament. That's Genesis, Pastor Kenneth. Okay. Jesus in Matthew chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, he says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And so they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. I love this. These are the exact vows that I read in the weddings that when couples don't write their own. I'll use my name in this. I say, I, Kenneth, take you, Sherry, to be my lawfully wedded wife, my constant friend, my faithful partner, and my love from this day forward. I offer you my solemn vow to be your faithful partner in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad, in joy as well as sorrow. I promise to love you unconditionally, to support you in your goals, to honor and respect you, to laugh with you and cry with you, and to cherish you for as long as we both shall live. Church, in America, we have a commitment problem. We have a commitment issue. My dad told me when I was growing up that you're only as good as your word, son. And it's something that I've hung on to, and I see people shake hands, and they say they mean it, and then it dissolves right after that. There's something that we've lost our commitment, and I want to take a time out, and I want to tell you that if you've experienced divorce in here today, I want to tell you that there is no condemnation in this place. There is no condemnation in this place. I want to tell you that those who are in Christ Jesus, he says there is no room for it. But I want to tell you for those who are still married that keep your commitment. This is hard stuff. I don't like standing in front of 500-600 people and saying the hard stuff of keep your commitment, but I love you enough to tell you, keep your commitment. Keep your commitment. Hebrews 13:4, and I believe this is why we don't keep our commitment. He says, let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. The second part can be redeemed. Jesus died for those sins, the sexually immoral and adulterous, but I want to focus on the first part. He says, let marriage be held in honor. I think that we've lost honor when it comes to marriage. If you watch any sitcom today, you watch any TV show today, the husband is portrayed as an idiot, and sometimes men, we live up to that. Would you agree? But he's always portrayed as an idiot, that he can't do anything right, that they are like so dumb and so like despicable. Like, they can't do one thing right, and then the women are disrespectful to the men. This is how we show marriage in our country. I believe that this is why we have a commitment problem, is because marriage is not held in high honor. Marriage is not held in high honor. Trust is where commitment and character converge. I believe this is where they lean on each other. This is where commitment and character come together. And your husband or wife, they want to know that when I put all my weight on you, I want to know that you're going to catch me. That the commitment is there. That you're going to keep the words that you said were not just empty words that you spoke, but I truly meant them when I spoke them before God and before you. The third thing is this. Keep your boundaries. Listen, I want to challenge you. This is what I tell every person in marriage preparation. I say set boundaries now, not later. Set boundaries now, not later. You're like, I've been married for 5 years. Okay, well, set them now. Don't wait till you've been married for 10. You've been married for 15 years. Set them now. Don't wait till 25. You've been married 25, 30, 40, 50. I don't know how many years you've been, but set boundaries right now. Set those boundaries in place. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13 says this. It says, therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. I know that this is an impossible task. Anybody holy in here today? Some women are like, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. If you got the holy thing, let's sit down and have coffee. I want to know how that's working for you. But listen, this is not something that we can attain. We can never become fully holy or fully perfect. But if our goal as Christians is to be imitators of Christ, it will be to stay as far away from the boundary, to stay as far away from the line, rather than to see how close we can get to it. I talk to couples who aren't married when we're talking about keeping your boundaries. I'm talking to, like, especially when I was in student ministry, talking to middle school and high school students, people would ask me the question, well, how far is too far? You ever heard that question? How far is too far? I think there's something broken about that question completely. That if we're to be imitators of Christ, the question, how far is too far, is this is the line, this is the edge. How far, how close can I get to it with actually being sinful? And I think that as a follower of Jesus, that goes counterintuitive to anything that we've ever set up. And in our marriage relationship, well, can I text her? Can I call her? Can I hang out with her? We get as close to the line as we possibly can. And as imitators of Christ, I believe that we are to separate ourselves from the line and say, look, I'm not even going to venture that way because I want to keep my boundaries. So set some boundaries now, not later. Is it okay if she rides by herself with another man? Is it okay if he rides by himself with another woman? Is it okay if they meet for coffee one-on-one with somebody of the opposite sex? Is it okay if they're having texting conversations or Facebook messaging or Snapchatting? Is it okay if they do that with somebody of the opposite sex? Listen, I want to tell you this morning, don't let me set your boundaries, but I'm telling you, for goodness sakes, have some boundaries. If I told you some of mine and Sherry's boundaries, you would probably think that we were completely crazy, and that's okay because they're my boundaries, not yours. But here's the reality of the matter is I've decided now that I'm going to draw some lines. I'm not above falling. How many know, hello, I'm human. I'm just like all of us. I'm just like the rest of you in here today. I'm just as capable of falling. I'm just as capable of making a fool out of myself. And so I've tried to put some boundaries in place. And you may think, if I told you some of the boundaries we have, you'd be like, you are ridiculous. And that's okay. But I challenge you to have some boundaries that make sense for your marriage. Is that making sense, guys? The fourth thing is this, is keep it open. Keep it open. 1 Corinthians 13:4, the beginning of that, says love is patient and kind. I believe that keeping it open is kind, and I believe that keeping it open builds trust. And there's a few areas that I think are important to keep open. The first one is this, it's important to keep it open in finances. Can I get an amen on that one? It's important to keep that open. It's important. Listen, I want to give you a few sub-points. This is like coaching minute with Kenneth, okay? Can we do that? Coaching minute with Kenneth. The first one, to keep it open, to trust in finance, is to realize that it's our money. It's our money. Sir, I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how much money she makes. If you get divorced, let me tell you, it is our money. It is 50-50. It doesn't matter if you come home with the big bucks or if she doesn't make a lot of money. I want you to know that it's our money. This isn't popular, I know. You said for better or for worse, and sometimes the worse is what he makes. It's our money. The second thing is this will save you some heartache. Agree on major expenditures. Don't come home and be like, hey baby, look at my bass boat. She ain't impressed. Unless she likes fishing. In that case, buy the bass boat. Agree on major expenditures. I would guess that nobody likes to be surprised with a $15,000, woohoo, here we are. Unless it's a ring, and then she's like, oh boy, you know what I'm saying? Agree on major expenditures. The third thing is this, is give freedom in small things. Give freedom in small things. Me and Sherry decided I'm addicted to this thing called coffee, right? I'm addicted to it, and not really, kind of, but anyways, moving on. But give freedom in the small things. We decided we were not going to argue about a $3 cup of coffee at Starbucks. From the beginning, we gave freedom in small things. Somebody, after the first experience, was like, how in the world, you said $3 cup of coffee, mine's like $5. I said, that's because I'm drinking a manly drink and you're not. Ask them. The fourth thing, this is a little sub-point here, is debt distracts. Debt distracts. Is that I believe it may not affect you, sir, like it affects her. It may not affect you, ma'am, like it affects him. But debt truly distracts from the main thing. And the last thing is this, is I believe that tithing is an important principle of marriage. I believe that God will never be first in your marriage until he's first in your finances. I'll draw the line and stand that God will never be first in your marriage until he's first in your finances. Another thing we need to keep it open. Another thing that we need to build trust is we need to trust her with your phone. We need to trust him with your phone. Sir, if she can have your last name but not your password, there's a problem. If she can have your last name and not the access to your email, not access to your iPad, not access to your computer, not access to any of those things, if she has your last name but not that, I believe there's some inspection that needs to be done. Man, one of the things that me and Sherry set up from the beginning, man, I saved her fingerprint into my phone so she just, she can get right in it anytime she wants. And again, you may think that's a crazy line that we draw, but it's one of those things. She can look at any email, she can look at any text. You're like, man, that's like crazy. But here's what I know about myself, is if I can hide something, if I can have a little cranny, then I'll start shoving it in that cranny. I'll start following it down that dark path. Anybody know that about themselves? That's willing to be honest today and say, you just know that about yourself? I see 2 hands back there. Come on, brother. But you know that about yourself. If there's any nook, if there's any cranny that you can hide in, you'll do it. Full access. Keep it open. Listen, I'm not saying that you have permission to grill them every moment, but what I am saying is if the two become one, there's no area that can be hidden, and there's no area that should be off limits. Because that's what happens when you get married, is the two become one. Dating couples, if he won't let you look at his phone, dump his tail today. Right now, in this moment. Send him a text that you won't ever be able to see. I'm just saying. Sorry, fellas. Didn't mean to get you broke up with right there, but the care room's out to your left, or your right, my left, so you can take advantage of that. The care team will be prepared to deal with all breaking ups today. So we joke about it, we laugh about it, but keep it open. There is so much that can be hidden in the darkness. There's so much can be hidden in quiet. There's so much that can be hidden in secret. Keep it open. Some of you have some hard conversations this afternoon, but that's okay because it's going to make us better. Keep it open. The last thing is this, is keep first things first. Keep first things first. What's the first thing? Jesus. Jesus. I told you guys the first week that Jesus is the only one that can take a mess and turn it into a miracle. We started with Jesus. We end with Jesus. Jesus is the only one who will provide change. Look, you could go back and you could listen to all these messages until you're blue in the face. You could read books on marriage. You could go to counseling. But until Jesus is first in your life, it would all be in vain. It would all be in vain until Jesus is first in your life. And here's what I know, that if Jesus is the target of our lives, then trust cannot be betrayed. It only happens when one or the other of us take our eyes off of Jesus. When we are not pursuing him with everything that we are, is only in that moment where trust can be betrayed. And so here's the challenge for every married couple in here today, for every couple that would say, both of you would say, I'm a follower of Jesus, the husband and the wife. This is not easy, but this is the truth. Let's keep our eyes on Jesus. Let's keep our eyes on Jesus. Let's listen to him and do what he says. And after we get done with that, let's listen to him some more and do what he says again. And if Jesus becomes our target, I promise you this, there will be this restoration in your marriage unlike anything you have ever experienced in your life. It may even be a level of your marriage that you've never even walked in before. Because when Jesus gets involved, he just makes things better.